Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, I'm very excited, elated to have facilitating for us Olayinka Oyedele. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and the topic we'll be looking at tonight is HR metrics that matter, turning data into business decisions. First, I would like to briefly introduce our facilitator, Olayinka Oyedele, so that some of us can get to know him even much better. Olayinka holds a bachelor's degree from the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, and he has a master's in data science from Rome Business School, Nigeria. He's a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria and a Microsoft certified data analyst. He has been an HR practitioner for about 7 years now, and it cuts across learning and development, compensation and benefits, people analytics, and the other HR value chain. He has also had experience in consulting, logistics, and fast-moving consumer goods. He has facilitated different people analytics training for some HR communities and firms, including NECA, and so on and so forth. Olayinka is a subject matter expert in facilitating training on people data analytics, advanced MX Excel, and so on and so forth. He has trained over 350 students on data analytics or business using analytical tools like Excel, Power BI, Tableau, SQL, and data collection tools. He currently works as people analytics specialist with the 7-Up Bottling Company. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking to us on the topic, HR metrics that matter, turning data into business decisions. Please, let's show some love with appropriate emojis and emoticons as we welcome Olayinka Oyedele. Over to you, sir.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Oluyemi. Please, can you confirm you can see my screen? And can everybody hear me clearly?
Confirmed.
All right, good. All right, as being introduced, my name is Olayinka Oyedele, and I'll be doing this. And I also want this to be an interactive session whereby every one of us can also contribute. So I'll be facilitating on HR metrics that matters, turning data into business decisions. So my profile has been read. The training objective is just basically to we are going to understand key HR metrics across each value chains. So I'll be able to take my time to pick some value chains and also pick out some key HR metrics in each of these value chains. And I will ensure that I spend my little time that was being allotted. And other objective is, how do we link metrics to business decisions? That's the objective of this training. And what we should be expecting should be calculating how to calculate core HR metrics, how to interpret these metrics effectively, and how do we even apply these metrics for workforce decisions. All right, so I will start by introducing us to some key things that are very, very germane and fundamentals. Firstly, I want to borrow from this man, Edward Demis. Is a person we all know, and this quote is a very, very popular quote within the space of data. He said, and I quote, "Without data, you are just another person with an opinion." Yeah, so sometimes when this quote is being read out, in the other part of us, we find it very threatening. And in the other part, we find this is the reality of things. So what I'm saying in essence is that if you are an HR person and you are not using data to power your processes, your interventions, just consider yourself as an HR that use opinions. And there is likelihood that you might not be taken serious. Likelihood, right? Because all what you'll be saying is just basically what you feel, what you assume, your opinion. However, they are not being backed with data. All right. The other person said, Ronald Koa, he said, if you torture the data long enough, it will confess to anything. This is one of my very most, I really love this quote very well. So what he's saying in essence is that as an HR professional that we are, the data actually exists. it existed. But the issue is that we have not been able to refine it. Maybe due to maybe capability or any other what have you. The data exists in our staff files that was stocked in our various wardrobe or anywhere we normally stack our staff files. What we stack there are data that if you refine it, you are going to gain a lot of insight from it. That's why they say data is the new oil. If you don't refine data, you won't be able to know how far and the benefits you can actually get from it. Now, we all know that HR is evolving from, as actually not even is evolving, is at least a far more evolved away from traditional or administrative to a data-driven HR. We've heard of AI coming and all that things, and we all know that what powered AI is data. Behind every AI you are seeing there, it's a data at the back. So we have metrics that provide evidence-based insight that connect people practice to organization outcomes. So by now, you should be able to drive every of your value chain you currently do in your various organizations with data. And God so good, we have almost all the value chain of HR, right from the entire employee life cycle, as key metrics that we can all utilize to drive our business decisions. Some of it we are going to see today. And another thing what data does for us is that it makes you as an HR leader to make an informed and timely decisions that will be impactful, that when your business leader are listening to it, they will know that, oh, this HR is actually doing the right thing, and they will take you serious. And how do we use data to drive people practice? It will also position HR as a driver of growth and competitiveness. So you won't just be seen there they will not be seeing you as a supporting staff. They will see it as part of the driver of the business. And there is this saying that if you want to get the seat at the table, you also need to work for it. And what will make you get that seat at the table is when you can use data to power your interventions, just like finance and other operation department does. So you should be able to use data to power whatever you want to, intervention you want to actually deliver or drive in your organizations. All right, I will start with this workforce analytic metrics because this is just the basic. This is the basic part of it, and it is expected that for every HR, you should be able at least do this, at least start from this, and I'll be able to break down this into the metrics, the definition of such metrics, the story behind it, why it matters, and the formula and the standard formula and measurement for such metrics across each value chain. So the first thing is here is the head count, which I think is very, very basic for every one of us. You should be able to know your head count in your various organizations, be it contract or FTEs. So you should be able to know the total number of employees in the organization or department. So we are looking at the total head count of the employees. Then you should be able to break it down by department. So this one will actually give room for your baseline in terms of your size and how you allocate your resources. So imagine if you work in an organization whereby most of your staff are in the operations department. So you should know as an HR that most of your resources, any kind of resources you are putting in as an HR, staff cost, you should know that people that are actually talking more of it are the people in the operation department, because that's where you have the highest staff. So you should be able to have an idea of that. So this will make you do the measurement is just like just use count of active of your employees. So you can do that in Excel, you can do that in Power BI, but Excel is the basic things we can all start with. Then the other one is workforce demographics. Very, very important, especially in an organization that they value demographics very well in terms of diversity. You should be able to know the distribution of your employee by age, gender, tenure, and role. Because by age, it's going to tell you the kind of employees that are currently in your organizations, right? You should be able to know the distribution of their age. You should be able to know their gender distributions, right? There are some companies that they have that as a KPI that, oh, we want to be 70-30 gender distribution organization. So they work towards that KPI. That's why some organization will just say, okay, due to gender balance, we prefer a female and other things. So some of them actually has a KPI. And in some organizations, it's also part of their, when they are trying to bid for maybe international contract or anything, it's part of the thing that they look into, right? And this helps you to track your diversity, your equity, and inclusion goals for organizations that subscribes to inclusions. So it's very simple. You are looking at the percentage representation of a demographics category. And one key thing is here is the tenure. You should be able to look at how long as people stay in your organizations. So some people call it loyalty, right? Loyalty range. Some people call it tenure or length of service, anything you want to call it, right? So you should be able to know that, okay, what is the average tenure? What's the average length of service? This will give you an idea about, okay, do people actually stay in these organizations? You can even cascade it down to average tenure by department. So you can know how long people have stayed in each of departments. You can also cascade it down to even by age, by gender. Just to give you an idea, oh, female tend to more stay in your organization than the males. So that you know that when you are trying to recruit for some strategic roles, you know the kind of gender you are looking for. It's also very, very important. That's why in some organizations, there are some particular roles that most times the only people you see there, the only gender you see there are females. Maybe probably they say female tend to be more loyal on job than others. I don't know. It's a rule of thumb. I have not seen any data that back that up, but that's what I do here over time. Then the next thing is a span of control. This is very, very strategic. This speaks to the average number of subordinates per each manager. So it talks about your organizational structure in terms of what is the managerial workload you give to each of your manager. So you are looking at, okay, this is the total employee divided by total managers. So you are looking at, for each managers, how many employees does he report to him, to such managers? That's what we call span of control. So for those areas that they have multiple subordinates or multiple people that report to such managers, then you can look into that in terms of ensuring that you balance it up. Because when there is more people under a particular manager, it tends to reduce efficiency and effectiveness of the managerial control of such person, right? So those are things you need to look into. So what's the story behind that is that in terms of that span of control now, when you have such things, then you can start breaking down into team leads, making it more or less like decentralize it, whereby you can now have, okay, team lead, then from team you can now have managers. So for you to be able to do that, you need to know your span of control for each employees, right? And the next one here is internal mobility rate. It's a workforce analytic metrics that we look into. So you are looking at the percentage of employees that you transferred, that was promoted, that was given maybe an upgrade from one role to another role, maybe redesignations that probably the person is an HR officer and there is an open role in what's it called? Maybe in finance, right? And you think that this person actually have what it takes to actually man that role. So instead of you looking outside, you actually redesign that person to that role. So the addition of all this, so you calculate the total number of people you've promoted, total number of people you've transferred, because transferring people from one role to another, even from one region to another region, you have different branches, is an internal mobility. So you're adding the total of people you promoted, total of people you've transferred, total of people you upgrade their role. Maybe you add more job to their roles, right? Maybe currently the person only do payroll, is a payroll officer. Now you feel like, oh, this guy can also let us add learning and development to his work, right? So maybe you're upgrading such person, you're adding to their job descriptions. All those things are internal mobility. So you are counting each of these things, you add it together, then you divide it by total number of employees. So this time you use an average total number of employees. That will give you your internal mobility rate. And the story behind this is that it's giving you the idea of your career growth opportunities. It's making you to know your talent development effectiveness in the sense that when you have an open rules, you consider people inside first before you actually throw such rules outside. So one of the things this will do for you is that a lot of people will be engaged. It's going to boost your retentions because people feel like if I have interest in this role, if I have the capability, they can easily move me. That's number one. It's going to reduce your recruitment cost because if you are sourcing outside, you know what it takes to source outside in terms of cost. So those are the things it's going to actually reduce. And it's also going to boost trust that, oh, this organization actually value my impact. So which means if I do more, there is an opportunity or growth opportunity for me within the organizations. And the last one is employee generational ratio. Very, very important in the sense that for any intervention you want to do, you must consider the kind of generation you have in your organization. What is their percentage? How many of them do you have? You can to make you have an idea, are we a Gen Z driven organizations? Are we a Generation Y driven organization or are we a millennials driven organization? Imagine you are in an organization and you have more of late generation X. So that kind of people now, there are some things that intervention you will do to them that will matter to them. Unlike if you are doing intervention that is Gen Z in nature, right? So whatever intervention you want to do now, in as much you know your generational distributions, you are going to know the kind of interventions you need to do. I know some organizations that because of the generation, the kind of generation, their generational distributions, when it comes to pensions, the way they structure their compensation is like for those people that are within late generation Y and generation X upward. That is the way they structure the pension for them. They tend to structure in a way that they have more pensions, right? Because they believe that these are people that maybe probably they are very, very old organizations, and what will matter to them now is their pension rather than any other intervention that might not even count. So you need to be very, very careful in terms of how we do intervention. We need to consider the generations we are so that we don't waste money, right? So that is that about workforce analytic metrics. These are just the key metrics that it is very, very important that you need to start tracking or you need to start reporting for your organizations. The next thing, I'm moving to recruitment metrics, especially for some of us that work in recruitment consulting firm, right? These metrics are very, very, very key, right? Because it has a direct effect on your bottom line. And let me mention this, for every people analytic program or measure, it actually look into three things. The first thing is efficiency, the second is effectiveness, and the third thing is impact. So there are some metrics that look into efficiency. There are some that look into effectiveness, and there are some that look directly into impact, right? So let's start with time to fill now. Time to fill is an efficiency metrics because it talks about the speed or your turnaround time when it comes to recruitment. And the standard way of measuring it is that you are looking at average number of days taken to fill a vacant positions. So if you are working in a recruitment consulting firm, or if you are in an organization that you do a lot of recruitment early, this metrics is very, very important because it speaks to your turnaround time. How do you feel? How fast do you fill a role? And it also across all the lineup process you have, because if you're in a particular recruitment process, some people have like 5 stages, some people have like 4 stages or 3 stages, depending, right? If you track this time to fill very well, you can know in each of these phases where you have bottlenecks. Is it from approval down to sourcing? Is it from sourcing down to interview, staging, or from interview staging down to maybe next line of approvals and other things like that? So you need to track this time to fill because it speaks to the end-to-end process of your recruitment. And what does this, how do we calculate this? You are looking at from the day your requisition was approved down to when the candidate received the offer. So it speaks from requisition approval date down to the date the candidate received your offer. That is time to fill. So it speaks to your efficiency of the hiring. It speaks to the internal process. Is there any bottlenecks within your process, if there is no bottlenecks, then you are going to have a very good time to fail. And that doesn't even impact the business. It impact the business because it will reduce costs. For instance, maybe you have there are some sales people that actually exit your business. I know that if you don't feel such rule, the business is actually losing in terms of money. So those are the impact time to fill actually speaks to. The next one is cost per hire. Cost per hire is another very strategic metrics in recruitment. It speaks to impact and it also speaks to effectiveness. In the sense that while you don't compromise quality of your hiring, and you don't even compromise your time, the efficiency of the hiring, you still ensure that you maintain the cost that has been allocated for each candidate hiring, or you reduce it. So this speaks to average expense you incurred to recruit and to bring in a new employees. So how do we track this? So what makes up the cost per hire? What are the elements that makes it up? The first thing is that where you are sourcing from, do you incur cost from it in terms of source? If you are sourcing internally, maybe you are the one that do it by yourself. So some people say we should look at time you spent in sourcing for it. If you be able to quantify that, fine. If you cannot quantify that, that is fine. What you can do is that you are looking at the annual CTC, which is cost to company of your recruitment team. So their year-to-date CTC, we actually substitute for the what? For the time it takes them for them to source that person. If you are not using an external recruitment agency in that sense. But if you are using an external recruitment agency, whatever you paid for this recruitment agency will be the cost of sourcing. I don't know. Do we get that, please? Please, can I have a thumbs up? Everybody can hear me? Good. So how do you now do that? So you bring in all these costs. So if you done in the interview stage, if it's easy for you to quantify what you buy during the interview, maybe you are an organization that when people come for your interview, you give them transport, or the panelists that you bring in, maybe you give them any cost you incurred, right? You should be able to gather those figures also, probably from the admin department, right? You add all these things together. That is your total cost. You will not divide it by the number of hires. So let's say, for instance, in the first quarter, what you have spent on recruitment is, let's say, 3 million, and you've only bring in like 10 people, right? 10 people. What I mean by 10 people, we are speaking to people that actually accept the offer and also people that reject your offer. So you are not only concentrating on people that actually accept your offer, you are also adding people that reject the offer during the process. So let's say in the first quarter, you hire like 10 rows. You hire 10 rows, and in that 10 rows, people that actually that pass through the process to where you give offer are 12. That means that you are using 12, right? You are not only using the number of people that actually accepted your offer. When you are calculating cost per hire, you are looking at for those and people that actually get your offer, because as at the time they are still in your process, before they now finally get your offer, you still incur cost on them, be it internally or externally, right? So you are dividing total recruitment cost divided by your number of hires. That will give you the cost per hire. Then we move down to quality of hire. Yeah, for this quality of hire, there is a general standard way you can measure it, and you can also have an additional. You can add an additional factors to it also, depending on your organizations. What does quality of hire do? It measures your new hire performance, retention, and cultural fit. So it ensures that the recruitment you deliver actually have a long-term value, not just speed. So you are not looking at speed. You are not only looking at cost. We're also looking at the quality. Because you might bring some candidates in as fast as possible, even with a reduced cost, and at the end of the day, their quality is not good, right? So how do you quantify this quality of hire now? It's very, very simple, right? When they come in, I mean, we know after 6 months that we normally do confirmations, right? So that confirmations actually speaks to quality of hires. And key factors you need to consider is, number one, the performance ratings. right? So you are looking at the performance of such person within the 6 months that he or she enter your organizations. You are looking at culture fit, right? Because you are not looking at the performance. Person might be able to perform, but might not be. It might have a bad culture in the organization. So you are looking at it. So that's why when you are designing your confirmation templates, right? You need to ensure that it's not only capture the performance of what the person is doing. It should be able to also capture the culture, your values, right? It should be able to also capture your values. And the last one is retention after 1 year. Does the person stay 1 year? Right? So these are just the basic standard. So you can look inward the organization, you can add other standards to it. Some people add feedback from the employees also in terms of their feedback, how they feel within their first 6 months and 1 year. Some people also add it also as part of these factors, elements to consider as a quality of hire. But the most standard one that is generally acceptable is you must look into performance, you must look into their culture, and you must look into their retentions. Very, very important. Any other thing can be added to these 3 elements. The next one is offer acceptance rate. It speaks to the percentage of candidates who accept your job offer. So in the sense that you give out 12 offers, but only 10 was accepted. So how do we calculate it? It will not be at the number of offers accepted divided by the number of offers that you give out. So if you give out 12 offers out and 10 accepted, that means that you calculate it by the number of people that accepted the offer, which is 10, divided by the total number of people you give, which is 12, times 100. So whatever the percentage is, will give you your offer acceptance rate. So what is the rationale behind this metrics is that it reflects your employer branding in terms of how competitive are you outside there. It reflects that are people willing to come into your organizations, right? Or as an organization, do you have what it takes to actually bring in talent, right? Because sometimes when candidates come into the pool of your recruitment, they don't really know much about your employee value propositions until when you give them an offer, especially when you in term one of the another thing is the experience they pass through during your recruitment process, right? That's one of the things they consider if some organization will accept your offer or not. Like some of us, when we are doing recruitment, when we are doing interview, right? As the organization is evaluating us, we are also evaluating the organization also. To the extent that if even before you go to the last stage of the interview, some people will actually drop off because they feel like, no, I don't have a very good experience in these organizations. Those are things that can reduce your offer acceptance rate. Or if you are not competitive in terms of offer, in terms of compensations, it's also very key. So this one speaks to your branding, how people see you outside there. There are some organizations that people will not actually even apply to such organizations. That kind of organizations, there is likelihood that the rate at which people will be rejecting their offer will be so high. And it shows that all the costs they've incurred is actually wasting. Because for any rejection of offer, you have to start again the process. And it's going to have effect on the time to fill. It's going to have effect on the cost per hire. Even to the extent that it might even have effect on your quality of hire if you are not careful. Because by the time you bring in people, what people are, they are just rejecting the offer. And you are tired, you just want to settle for anyone, right? And the last one here is source of hiring. This speaks to distribution of hires across your recruitment channel. So we use so many recruitment channels, but you must be able to know which of these your channels is actually effective. And not only effective, which of these your channel is actually effective for some particular roles or cadre of roles. There are some roles that you don't need to go to LinkedIn to source for it. What you need to do is referrals. Maybe if you are looking for drivers now, for people in logistics, you are looking maybe for truck drivers or dispatch rider and what have you. You know, if you drop such adverts in LinkedIn, you waste your time. So the only thing you can use is that you can look internally from the existing drivers, speaks to them. Please, do you have some guys that can come in? We have an open house for driver. Can you recommend? That is fine. So you should be able to know which of the source will be applicable for which particular kind of role. Or if you're looking for IT roles now, maybe a software developer, a data analyst, data science, and the likes, you know that, oh, that kind of role is either you look into head hunting, right? Or you go into some kind of platforms where you have a lot of IT there, right? Maybe LinkedIn, or you go to GitHub, and those are places you can find such people, not a normal general advert. That you are looking at number of hires from source divided by total. So you are looking at, for each of these your platform, how many do you bring in? Quality, measuring their quality. Maybe after they've stayed like 6 months. From there, you can know which of these source is actually giving your quality of hire. It's it works. If you pull out some roles, if you do want some particular roles on LinkedIn, that is because when you are headhunting, you are considering a lot of things. Maybe you are considering the industry the person is coming from. Maybe you need a software developer. Maybe you work in the bank now. I need a software developer. So if you want to headhunt, you are looking at, oh, this person must also be working in bank, because so that the person will have the nitty-gritty of how the operation works. So those are the things headhunting will do. And it also makes your hiring to be very, very fast also. So this is all about recruitment metrics. These are the key metrics around recruitment. Now, learning and development metrics. The first thing here is the training cost per employee. So you are looking at the cost effectiveness of your training. How many people do you train, and what is the cost you incurred? So when we are speaking about the cost, you are looking at, it is a training that you bring in facilitators, right? You are looking at all the costs incurred in terms of the facilitator fee, in terms of the cost of maybe the logistic behind the bringing in the facilitators, the logistic behind the where the training is actually holding, in terms of administrative things that you do for such trainings. You are adding everything together. Then you are not dividing it by the total number of people you trained. So if the total cost you incur is 2 million and you trained 10 people, maybe a leadership training, right? So your training cost per employee is 200,000 naira. So which means for each employee, you spend 200,000 on them. So what is the rationale behind it? It tracks the affordability and investment in your workforce development. So you should be able to track the cost you incur in your trainings. And the measurement is total training cost divided by total employees trained. The next one is ROI on trainings. This is a very, very strategic metrics, though difficult to measure, especially if you don't know what it takes to measure it. And if your environment is not a supporting data-driven organization, it might be very, very difficult, because ROI on training, if you can get it right, is a very, very strategic metric that every business leader wants to know, because there is this thing that is always going that, oh, we are just doing training, we don't even know have the return on investment on training. And that's why sometimes when they want to maybe they want to cut budget, right? Where most HR or most organizations go into is in the training budget, because most businesses don't really have trust in this training, right? And there is even a colleague of mine that was said one thing, that in the organization, if they want to go for training, what they normally say is that you guys just going there to go and eat rice. There is nothing you are doing. We don't have the impact, right? So it is very, very important that we get this ROI training right. And I'll be able to at least put some things down here where how best we can actually measure this training, ROI on trainings. So the why about it is that it shows, does your learning investments, all the money, all that cost that you incur, right? All those leadership training you send people to, all those Excel training, what have you, does it actually translate into performance and business value? That is the rationale behind, that's the story behind it. And how do we measure this? So you are looking at the training benefits minus the training cost divided by the training cost. Now, where the issue is how do we determine the training benefits? That is where most of the issue is always is. It is very, very difficult sometimes to actually quantify the benefit of such trainings. However, it is not that difficult. If you are a data-driven organization, it is as easy as possible. Just that you need to do what you need to do at the right time. So I'll still come back to this training ROI, because I have the list of how we can measure it here. Then the next thing is training completion rates. So you are looking at the percentage of employees that complete your assigned training programs, right? So this indicates your participation, the compliance level, or the effectiveness of your training delivery, especially for trainings that is being done by LMS. It is very important that you must be able to track this training completion as little as it is. It's very, very strategic, because when your organization invests in LMS and people are now actually using it, it means that you just wasted money on LMS. You need to be able to show your business leader that this LMS that we purchase, people are actually using it, right? So how do you do it? For any training you have assigned, what is the percentage of people who completed such trainings, right? Especially compliance trainings for people that work in bank, right? For some of you that work in bank before, you know that there are some trainings that, in fact, they even add it as part of your KPI. You must complete it, because especially trainings that have to do with all this compliance, cybersecurity, and other things like that, you must do it, right? So you are looking at that training completion rate is very, very important, because this speaks to the participation level of your employees with regards to trainings and compliance. Then the other one is learning hours per employees, right? You are looking at average number of hours spent on training per employees. So you are looking at the investment and what is the continuous learning culture of your employees. So for some of us that use LMS, right, there are some LMS that will give us the level of learning hours each employees are spent in learning. So this gives you the idea that, okay, you don't only buy that LMS, your people, your staff, they are actually utilizing it, looking at the hours that is being spent on such things. That is the strategic insight behind it. For organizations that don't have LMS that would maybe in-house or outside and anything like. So you are looking at the time and period that people actually leave their work to go and attend such trainings. So you are looking at the value in the sense that by the time they come back, what is the impact of such trainings? Those are things like, let's say for instance now, you are looking at a safety training, right? Maybe you do have a 2 hours, 30 minutes every morning. You do have a safety pep talk every morning. That 30 minutes every day, right? So you are looking at, okay, what is the hours these people are spending on this training? Then you are now benchmarking it or correlating it with what is the number of our maybe near miss or accidents or incidents we have in the organization. So you are looking at, does the training, does it actually, does it even convert to value? So that's why you are doing the correlations. So it's also very important. It's a very, very important metrics. Now, we'll fall back to the training ROI, return on investment on training. As we all know, we are well aware of these Kirkpatrick's 4 levels of evaluations. This is one of the most used evaluations for trainings. And there are some data points that you use in each of these levels, right from level 1 down to level 4, when you want to quantify for ROI on trainings. The first level is reactions. So if you want to get your ROI training well, it all started from your training need assessment. You must be able to get the training assessment well, in the sense that a gap must have been recognized before you send people for trainings. Training is not something you use to make people happy, right? Training is not something that you just use to compensate people that, oh, I think he or she's not happy, let him go for training, right? It's not something that it's not more of compensation like that. It's more of filling a gap, a skill gap, than compensations, right? Because some people see training as, because we want to retain him, we want to make him or her happy, let him go for LBS training and all that. Yes, the person will be happy, but the value, you won't be able to quantify it, because you won't be able to see the value of such money spent on that training. So that's why you need to get your training need assessment well. So before you assign any training, a training need assessment must have been done perfectly as an HR in alignment with what? With the line managers. So after we have gotten this right, good. That means that we have a gap, right? Good. Now, the first thing is reactions. We are looking at the participants' satisfaction with the trainings. So you can do this through post-training survey. So you are immediately after the training, you roll out a survey. People feel it. They talk about the reaction they got the training. And when you are measuring this, you need to focus more on training content, the content of the training that is being delivered, right? The facilitator, right? What is their reaction towards the facilitator? What is the reaction towards the training content in terms of the content of such training? Because if you send people for a training that they already know, like maybe you send people for basic Excel now, and the person that you send for such trainings actually know basic Excel. So the reaction of that one to such trainings, one person will not actually see the value because he already knows it. That is why it's very, very necessary that you must do a training gap, need analysis gap before you send people for training. So your survey should focus on the facilitator, should focus on the training content, should focus on the environment where the training was being done, right? In terms of the delivery method. Is it an online? Is it physical? Another thing. So, and you must have a general learning satisfaction rate, like, oh, in Hall, on the rate of 1 to 10, kindly rate your satisfaction on this training. So from 1 to 10 now, the person will just give you a full overview of his learning satisfactions. So the person picked 8, 9, that means that, oh, the training is actually good in Hall. So that's what reaction will do for you. For this reaction now, is only centered with the person that you sent for the training, how he or she feels. It's only also centered on you that actually administer the training. Oh, will you be able to administrate a good training program well? Those are the two things that one will give. That one will not actually speak to impact, right? It only speaks to, oh, the training we did, how is it in terms of administrative coordinations, right? That is what reaction speaks to. Now let's come to learning now, which is the level 2. Level 2 speaks to learning, which is, does learning actually even take place? So just like I said, a person that knows a basic Excel, maybe a finance officer that actually knows the normal basic Excel, and you send that person for that kind of basic Excel training. The question is, does the person learn after he or she comes from training? That is what this learning, the level 2 speaks about. So you want to know the learning gain. So how do you track this? You can track this by, before the person go for such trainings, you should be able to do some evaluation on the particular training the person is going for, right? So if a person is going for leadership training, there are some tests, some leadership tests, there are some applications or some AI tools that you can actually use to quantify, the person can actually do it to know his level. Then when that person come back from the training, then you should do another such trainings in alignment with what that person has gone to learn, right? So you now have pre-test and you now have post-test scores now. So by the time you do the difference between the two, it's going to give you an idea that, oh, learning has actually taken place. That is the level 2, measuring level 2. Yes, it is easy for us to quantify this, the first level, the second level. Now, level 3 now, where it is getting more complicated, is behavior. And how do you even quantify this behavior? Depending on the kind of trainings you do, right? So let's say, for instance, now, customer service training. Before the training, you already recognize the gap, right? How do you measure behavior of this thing, of a customer service training? One of the things you can look into is that you are looking at, before such, that customer service officer go for such trainings, what is the level of the complaints you receive from your clients or your customers, right? You can actually get this via their ratings. The kind of customers, it depends on the customer feedback channel you are using. That's why if you want to be a data-driven organization, you need to have a very good data governance in place, so that for all this data, it will be very, very easy for you to bring it out and for you to actually align it with business, right? So you are looking at what is the level of complaints we received before the customer service officer go. Then after they come from such trainings, has it reduced? So if that assume before they go, customer do complaints of please the rate at which your customer service officer or your receptionist response to our complaints is low. It takes them a lot of time. Even the way they respond in terms of how they engage us is bad, and a lot of complaints come in. Maybe in a particular quarter, you have like maybe 12 complaints coming from different customers, right? Then after such person go for that customer service training, when it comes back, right, you relate the complaints. Has it reduced or has it increased? That actually speaks to behavior, right? So, and how do you measure this? That when people go for training, you need to give it a ripening period of either 3 months or 6 months before you start evaluating these behaviors. The first two, you evaluate it when before the person go for training, and immediately after that person come from the training, you evaluate the reactions and learning. But coming down to behavior and results, you need to give it a ripening period of 3 or 6 months, depending on the trainings you are doing, right? If you send your CEO for a Lagos Business School Lagos Business School course, you should not be expecting return on in the next maybe 1 month or 2 months. Even you might even give such CEO like 1 year or 6 months, right? Because you must be able to wait for that training to actually ripe for you to actually know the returns on investments of such things. So there are other things like that. So even if you send people for leadership trainings, right? You've tested their leadership. Like when they come back, you can do some anonymous 360 survey from the employees. In terms maybe emotional intelligence and other. So there's a way you structured your survey that you get your feedback right. Oh, actually, behavior has actually taken place. The last one is results, which actually speaks to the impact of trainings in terms of. So most times, for these results, it might not be necessary to be financials. When I mean by financial, like it's not necessary to be monetary in nature, in the sense that you must be able to quantify it monetarily, right? It is not all training that is very, very easy that you be able to quantify the result monetarily. There are some that what you just have to do is, what you just need is just change. So let's say, for instance, now, you send a training around maybe compensation and benefits. You send one of your payroll officer, right, to compensation and benefits trainings, right? And you know that before you send that person into training, such trainings, it takes him or her like maybe 4 or 5 days to finish your the payroll cycle, from the point of when it started down to when the payroll was approved and other things. And even with that, there is always a level of error in such trainings, either as a result of maybe people are overpaid or people are underpaid, or he or she didn't hire some people, or he or she didn't even remove people that have exited from the business, right? You notice that, right? And you said you sent such person for the training, for maybe a compensation or payroll training, what have you, right? In that kind of sense, when the person comes from the training, what you are looking at is reduction in the error rate. You are looking at, oh, what's the level of the error before he or she go, right? When it comes back after the training, what is the level of the error? That's number one. You are looking at, before he or she goes, he spent 5 days to close up this payroll. When he comes back, he's now using like 2 or 3 days, because the person has been exposed to a lot of things around payroll. He has known that, oh, these are to quantify tax and other things like that. So things that actually take him or her a long period of time. So he has been able to learn it. So you are looking at the reduction of the time for him to actually close up the payroll. Then if you want to quantify from the point of financial now, as at the time the person is doing error, what is the financial implication of such errors? So you are adding such things up. So you are looking at the summation of all the overpaid, right? You are looking at the summations of the errors in terms of people that you didn't actually add to the payroll. Because when you don't add people to the payroll, maybe a new employee now that you didn't actually add him to payroll, you didn't pay them for a particular point of time. That person, for that period of time, that person will be the more results, either financially or not financially. Another thing is that if you send people for leadership trainings, right? How do you quantify the results? You might be looking at retentions, turnover. So that leader, that manager you sent for a emotional intelligence training or leadership training from a particular department, right? You are looking at what is the retention, what is the attrition rate in that, turnover rate in that particular department, right? Then after the person comes from training, maybe you give him 3 months, what is the retention rate again? to know if actually the trainings are actually take place or not. So those are the way you are quantifying ROI on training, especially if the training doesn't have anything to do with something that is quantifiable in nature. It is very easy if it is sales. It is very easy if it is all these productions. Very, very easy for such people, right? It is even very, very easy when it comes to customers. So you are looking at, oh, how many, before we send you for a customer's training, how many customers do you have? Then how many customers do we get after the training? What is our customer retention before the training? Then what is our customer retention after the training? Then for the customer retention now, for you to quantify it financially now, you're now looking at before the training, you have 100 customers, right? Then, no, you are looking at maybe in the past quarters, your average customer retention has always been between 100 to 120, for example. Then, after the training, right, you give it a lapping period, maybe of 3 months or 6 months. You measure again, what is our average customer retention? So it has moved from 120, you now have maybe 150. Then the difference between that 150 and 120 is 30 customers. Then what is the financial implication of such customer in the sense that those customers now, what money are they bringing to your organizations? So you sum all the money they bring into your organizations, that is your quantifiable in terms of benefits, your training benefits for such things. So you will now bring me down to the training ROI now. So it's now going to be training benefits minus training cost. If the benefit you have is 3 million, right? And the cost of training you incur is 1 million. So you're now doing 3 million minus 1 million divided by 1 million training cost times the percentage. Then you know the what the so that is for the L&D metrics. Then the next one is turnover metrics, right? Very, very important. The first one is your overall turnover rate. This speaks to percentage of employees leaving the organization in a given period of time. So if you are looking at the overall turnover rate, so you are looking at both voluntary and involuntary. So you are looking at voluntary in the sense people that resign, right? Involuntary, people that maybe they leave as a result of they are retired, or the contract actually end, or as a result of death or termination and the like. So you are summing everything together, right? You are not dividing it by the average number of employees. So you are looking at, let's, for instance, you want to know your annual turnover, right? So you are looking at the start of your employee headcount as at January 1st, right? If you, within your financial, if you are running from January to December, right? So the beginning of a financial, which is January 1st, what headcount do you use to start it? Then at the end of December, what headcount do you use to end it? You are summing the two together, you divide it by 2. That won't give you the average. Then you are now dividing it by the total number of people that have exited, be it voluntary or involuntary. That will give you the overall turnover rate. So the reason, the rationale behind is that this gives you a workforce stability and your overall HR effectiveness. One of the sources of every HR is that if you can be able to reduce turnover, it's a very, very huge success, because a lot of things go into you retaining an employee in an organization. Now, we cannot stay only on overall turnover rate. You need to break it down. And the one that it should even be more germane and focused to you is this voluntary turnover, because you can't control this, right? But involuntary turnover, people will surely retire. If you is ripe for retirement, they must go. There's nothing you can do about it, right? If death comes, there is nothing you can do about it, right? So your focus should be more of the voluntary part. You must be able to know your voluntary turnover rate. And how do you do this? You are looking at the employee who resigned on their own. Maybe as a result of better offer, maybe they are dissatisfied, any other thing that might be the reason why they are resigning, right? Because that kind of resignation is being initiated by the employees, right? And the rationale behind it is that it makes you understand your engagement, your compensation or career growth within your organizations. So how do you quantify this? How do you measure this? So you are looking at the voluntary separations. So if 20 people exited your business, and out of that 20, 10 of them actually resigned. The other 10 left as a result of maybe retirement, death, or you are the one that actually terminate them. So it will not be 10 divided by the average number of your employees times 100. So you're only singularly picking out those people that actually voluntarily resign out. And you are dividing it by your average number of employees times 100. That will give you your voluntary turnover rate. However, as you are looking at the voluntary turnover rate, you also need to deep dive down into what we call regretted and non-regretted. Because there are some turnover, there are some voluntary turnover that is good. Imagine people that are actually leaving, exiting your business, that are resigning. These are people that they are not even performing in your organization. That's a very good turnover. So I do say it that not all turnovers are bad. There are some turnovers that are good, because when you are measuring turnover, you don't just look at it from the overhaul of turnover, 10% turnover. No. You need to cascade down, deep dive into these people that are even leaving. Can we even know the kind of people that are leaving? And by standard, there are some factors that you must put in place before you can consider that this is a regretted or this is not a non-regretted, right? And internally also, you can also add some other elements. But factor that is generally considered is that, number one, you must look at the performance of that person. You must look at the culture fit of that person. And you must look at the criticality of that role, how critical that role is of that person. Those three elements is key standard for you to determine if a particular exit is regretted or not regretted. So for instance now, people are exiting. What you need to do is you need to get their last performance appraisal results to know their performance level. That's number one. Their culture fits. However, when you are doing your performance appraisal, that you actually infuse culture fit into it, right? You measure the values and other things. So that actually speaks to the entire performance, right? Then you look at the criticality of that role, right? This role that people are exiting, how critical it is, right? So by the time you combine these two together, you'll be able to quantify, oh, this is a regretted role and this is non-regretted roles, right? So those are the way you can quantify regretted role. And it doesn't stay there. You can also have your internal elements to it, right? There are some organizations that add other internal elements to it as part of the things that makes up their regretted turnover. Then the next one is new hire turnover. So this is talking about the percentage of new employees living within a set time frame, most especially 6 to 12 months. So if you bring in new employees, right, you are looking at, we bring in 20 employees in this mid-year of our financial year. Out of these 20, right, 5 have actually lived between 1 year to 6 months. So how do you calculate your new hire turnover? You are looking at the 5 that have left divided by 20 times 100. That won't give you your new hire turnover rate. So what does this speak to? This speaks to the effectiveness of your recruitment and onboarding, especially for the onboarding. Yes, there's some people that when the first day they came into the organization, the kind of way everybody do, instantly those people, that same day, they've actually typed their resignation letter on ground. They've started applying for another jobs. Imagine you are bringing somebody in and the experience in the onboarding time is very, very bad. When people are coming into your organization, it takes time before you even give them work tools. Even the organization, you'll be the one to even go and be fighting for your work tools, right? So it means that they didn't even prepare for the person that is coming in. So those kind of experience speaks to your new hire turnover rates, because they are not well being prepared. You didn't give them the right tools to work. Even in terms of the onboarding process, the line manager is supposed to at least give them some insight about how the work go on. Even the HR need to also sit with them, tell them about the culture of the organization, set up KPIs along with line manager with such employees. So none of such things is actually being done. And yes, the employee is feeling like, oh, I think I've actually come into the wrong place. And I'm very sure most of us on call, we actually do that. We know that already, right? Sorry, please, 1 minute. Let me quickly plug in my laptop. 1 minute, please.
Hello, Olayinka, are you still there? Hello, Olayinka. Can you hear me?
Sorry, can you confirm you can see my screen? Okay, no other
Yes, I
presentations.
see your
Okay,
screen.
all right. One minute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Share your screen.
Sorry, can we all hear me now, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Please share your screen.
Oh, all right, good. Okay. All right. Okay, so actually stop at this new higher turnover rate, right? So those are things you are looking at. So you are looking at the total number of people your new hire that exited divided by the total number of new hires you bring in times 100. So that one is giving your new hire turnover rate. And it speaks to your onboarding processes, right? Because when people come into the organizations and they find out that your onboarding process doesn't actually align with their values, they then to start preparing for their exit. And the next one is turnover cost. How do we quantify the cost of turnover, right? This is a kind of metrics that you can use to convince management that the cost of replacement or the cost of turnover is actually higher than the cost of retentions, right? You should be able to bring out the cost of turnover. Oh, so far so good. This is the cost of turnover for people that have actually exited our business, right? So you are looking at how do you quantify the financial burden of attritions and highlight that one will give you a light for need for retentions. So how do we quantify? What are the elements you are looking at? So you are looking at the recruitment cost. So this is where your cost per hire comes in. How much does it take you to actually recruit for such particular roles, right? You are looking at the training costs. If you are the type that when people come into organizations, you normally train them or you do onboarding, all those costs you incur in terms of onboarding, you are looking at that, right? Then you are looking at the lost productivity. So what is the loss? How do you quantify the lost productivity now? So you are looking at, as at the time the person leaving the organizations, right? The person that is actually taking over or that is replaced that person, or the person doing the work, that person might be paying an overtime, right? It will be like an overtime, especially if you are working in the manufacturing sectors, right? When one of your people in your front line leave, it's going to boost overtime because people will surely replace that person, right? So that cost you incur for such overtime is one of these lost productivity. That's number one. The cost you incurred in terms of the people that is actually filling the space of that person in terms of productivity. So those are things you add up with your training cost, with the recruitment cost. Everything you sum it up, then you divide it by the total number of visits. Then you have your turnover cost for each rows. So you'll be able to show that, okay, this is what it cost us for all the exits we have. Then you can able to now use it to actually make a business case that, okay, it actually pay us for us to retain than losing people. And the last one is the turnover predictions. This is more technical because you must be able to forecast or predict likelihood of people that are leaving your organizations, right? Because you are looking at, okay, people that are leaving, why are they leaving? What are the elements of people that are leaving, right? So you are looking, there are a lot of factors you considered, right? So you are looking at their performance, their engagement score, and what have you. There are a lot of things that actually go into this. So I don't really want to delve more because this actually is more technical because you need to use Python or regression analysis for this kind of predictions. There is a lot of more that goes into that. Then we have the comp and ben metrics that is also very, very strategic, right? The first one is compare ratio. We are all aware of compare ratios, right? You are looking at the salary you are paying the employee with regards to the midpoint of the pay range. So if you bring in people within a particular role, let's say finance, maybe finance role now, right? Maybe you have 5 people there. Each one of them, you are looking at what is their comparative ratios of the payments. So you are looking at the employee salary divided by the range midpoint. How do we do this? So let's assume maybe you have 5 people in a cadre of work, maybe in a senior cadre, right? All the salary you are giving them in terms of maybe annual salary, right? You are doing an average of it. The average of it will give you the range midpoint. So you've already have your midpoint in that way. Then you're now looking at that particular employees now. How much are you paying him or her? So if the average salary of people in your senior roles is let's say 10 million annually, right? And you have a particular employees now that maybe you are just bringing such employee in, and the annual payment of that person is maybe annual salary of that person is 7 million, right? So that means that you are saying 7 million divided by the 10 million, which is the average, times 100. So whatever that gives you will give you the composition in terms of comparative ratio of such employees. So it is always being cascaded into 3. If it is less than 1, right? Or if it is less than 100, if you are using it in terms of percentage, that means that the person is actually lagging with the midpoint. If it is 100% or it is 1, if you are using a normal whole number, that means that the person is actually at the midpoint. If it is above 100% or 1, that means that person actually is above your midpoint. That is what compare ratio does. So most times this is being done internally for you to know the positions of your compensations, where each one of your employees are within the organization cadre. And that one can make you make some strategic decisions. Maybe when you do some performance management, when you are doing performance management review, right? You are doing calibrations. That will guide you to know the people you need to actually compensate more in time based on the performance they've done. Not that you just put them in a particular pay grade. You have a data that is guiding your points. You know where they currently are, and you know where you are taking them to. Then the other one is salary range penetrations. People in compensation and benefits use this a lot, right? So you are looking at the position of an employee within your pay range, right? So it speaks to the progression in your salary band. And how do you identify the pay risk within your band? So you are looking at the employee salary minus the minimum in the range of the salary band. You are not dividing it by the what? The maximum of that range minus the minimum of that range. So let's say, for instance, now, for a particular cadre of staff now, maybe the highest pay range there is monthly now is let's just say 1 million naira. And the minimum is 500,000, right? Good. And the current employees is earning 700,000. So what you are doing now is that you are doing 700,000 minus the minimum, which is 500,000, divided by the range maximum, which is what? 1 million minus the minimum, which is 500,000. The percentage of that, what that gives you the position of where that person stands within the salary band. Maybe the person is 70% of your salary band in terms of your pay ranges. Maybe it's 80% of your salary band. So these are things will make you have a perspective of how you actually distribute your employees in terms of pay ranges. Then the next one here is a pay equity ratio. The strategic part behind this is you are ensuring fairness and pay regulations So you are looking at you are comparing your compensations across demographics, be it gender, be it role. So you are looking at, oh, are we actually paying? We are not being biased in terms of payment, in terms of, oh, we are considering everybody fair and equal. So you are looking at average pay of a particular group of employees. You are dividing it by the average pay of a particular group of employees. So you are looking at your males now for each cadre. Let us maybe senior role now, right? You are looking at the average pay. You pay the male on the senior roles, and you are also looking at the average pay. You pay the females on the senior roles. By the time you divide the two together, you are looking at the difference in terms of ratios. That one speaks to, are you actually paying them equally or not? These are very, very strategic metrics that you can use to back up your compensation interventions. Then the next one is market ratios, which is salary competitiveness index. So this is very, very important for some of us in the organization, because this one will tell us our positions in comparing to people outside our organizations in terms of market, right? So you are looking at what is the market ratio? Where are you in market in respect to compensation? Because this actually speaks to your retention and attritions. If people know that the likelihood of your organizations, right, pay more than you for a particular set of roles, they will be targeting that organizations. And we all know that people have friends, right? People have colleagues, people have expert colleagues in organizations. Let's say, for instance, you are working in bank now, right? Staff have colleagues that are working in another bank, doing the same thing they are also doing in your current organizations. So definitely they know what they pay them, right? So you as an HR or you as an organization, you must be able to tell your leaders that, oh, when it comes to market, this is where we are compared to our competitors. So the implication of this is that there is likely that we can be losing our best talents to these competitors. So which means that all the knowledge they have gathered in your organizations, they are taking it to the competitor, right? To go and actually add value to them. So you must be able to know that you must be able to meet the market. If you cannot lead the market, you must be able to meet the market. At least you must be on the same market level with your competitor, so that it's going to reduce your attrition rate. So how do you measure this? So you look for a particular cadre. This can be cascaded by cadre, or this can also be cascaded by job role, depending on how you want to do it, right? So, but the most effective is you cascade it by cadre, management, senior, junior, right? So look at your organization that you are within the same industries. If you are working in banking, right? So look for the likely banking organizations. Get their data for at least 5 organizations. So that means that you have 5 comparators. Get what is their average salary for their management staff, average salary for their senior staff, average salary for their junior staff. Get one for bank A, get for bank B, bank C, and everything. Whatever you get now, sum it, put it on a particular Excel sheet. Run an average of it. It's going to give you your average market salary. Then now come back to your organization. Look at what is your own average salary you pay your management, right? Then you divide it by the average market, you times it by 100. Then it's going to give you where you are as far as market is concerned. So if it is less than 1 or 100, it means you are lagging in the market. If it is 1, it means that you meet in the market. You are in the same average with the market. If it is beyond 1 or 100%, what it then means is that you are actually above the market. You are part of people that is currently leading the market. Might not necessarily mean you are the one leading the market, but you are part of people that is actually leading the market. That means that in terms of compensation, you are doing well, and that will actually reduce your turnover. Then the last one we have here is a variable pay ratio. So you are looking at your variable pay. For some of us that pay bonuses, incentive, commissions to the maybe our sales people, or people that you actually give them bonuses and other things, maybe as a result of their performance. So you are looking at what is the percentage of your variable pay over your total payroll or total compensations. So that percentage is actually showing you that, okay, you are showing your performance-based pay and what is the percentage of the amount you are used to motivate your employees. That is what that actually speaks to. And the last one here is total reward cost per employees. So what you are doing here is that you are tracking all the entire staff costs you incur on a particular employees. So you are adding your employer payroll cost with the staff the staff salary, the HMO cost that you incur for each employee. You're adding everything together. Every other staff cost that you do, you're adding everything together. Then you are dividing by the total number of employees. That one will give you the what? Your average total reward cost per employees. So you can also cascade this by cadre or by department to give you an overview of, oh, okay, this is our total reward cost per each employees. And the next one I have here is, let me look at my time. Oh, I think I have nothing less than 5 minutes. So the next one we are looking at is the succession planning metrics. So this is very, very strategic also, because you are looking at what is the metrics behind that you are not putting your organization into risk. And the first thing here is your succession coverage. What is the percentage of those critical roles that you have identified that have at least one identified successors? So for each of those critical roles that you have identified, so you are looking at how many of them actually have an identified successor. So that is the succession coverage. So you are looking at the critical roles with successors divided by the total critical roles. So if you have like maybe 100 critical roles that you have identified in your organizations, from these 100 roles, let's assume 70 of them you already identify as successors there. That means that you are doing like 70 divided by 100 times 100. That actually gives you your succession coverage rate. Then the next one is the readiness index. From these people that you have identified, right? It speaks to how many of them are ready in terms of they are ready to actually take over these roles. Let's assume the current holder of that role actually exit your business or leave your business. Do you have these people, how many of them, for each of those critical roles, how many of them are ready in terms of readiness rate? So you are looking at that. So what that speaks to is that in terms of risk, you are looking at if anybody exits today, there is actually a person that is there to replace them. So that speaks to your risk, that speaks to your contingency plan over time as far as HR is concerned. Then I will look at the bench strength now. It's all very, very, very strategic. These are very critical metrics that we need to actually look into. So you are looking at the number of qualified successors that is available per critical roles. So for those critical roles you are looking at now, how many of them is available? So for some critical roles, you might have 2 successors that you have identified. Some you might have 1. So in each critical roles now, how many successors do you have that you have identified for such critical roles? So that's what speaks to your bench strength. So it's looking at each critical role, CEO, how many people do we identify that if our current CEO leaves today, we have 2 people on standby that in fact they are ready to take that mantle, as if our CEO actually decided to exit today. So that's what your bench strength speaks to. So you are looking at the total successors divided by your total critical roles. It's going to give you the percentage of your bench strength. Then we have the internal promotion rate, which is very easy. You are looking at the internal promotion, people that you promoted, divided by the total leadership hires. So those leadership positions, right? How many of them that do you fill internally into that leadership position? That speaks to your internal promotion rate. How often do you promote people from their current role to where they are today? So all these are succession planning metrics. And the next one we have here is a critical role risk index. So critical risk index is like the opposite of your readiness, right? So for those critical roles you've identified, how many of them don't have successors? So that means that if you have 100 critical roles that you have identified, and you say 70 actually have a successor, that means that your critical role risk index is the remaining 30 that you don't have successors. So that is your critical role risk index, because that is speaking to total number of people without successor divided, total number of roles without successors divided by your total critical roles. That speaks to your critical role risk index. And we have another one, development gap, which is speaking to your all these successors you are talking about. How many of them have the required skills or competencies? So you are looking at from these people now, right? You are looking at out of all the people that we have identified as the successors, right, for these critical roles, how many of them have the right skills to actually take these new roles, divided by the total number of the successors you've identified. So if you have 100 critical roles, right, 70 has been identified, right? Out of these 70, how many of them actually have what it takes in terms of skill to actually, in terms of readiness, or in terms of they have the right skills to actually occupy these new roles? You are doing that. Okay, how many of them? If out of these 70, only 50 have the required skills to actually go into this new role, that means that you are doing 50 over 70 times 100. That's giving you your developmental gap rate. And the last one here is the succession plan utilizations. So you are looking at from these leaderships, right? Your leadership roles, or all these roles that you've identified as critical roles, right? How many of your employees actually fill that role via succession planning? Not via you recruit them from outside. How many of them actually fill that role via succession planning? That speaks to your succession plan utilizations. How often do you utilize your succession plan? So you might have done your succession plan, do everything. The question is, do you actually use it? So that is what this succession plan utilization speaks to. I think I'm running out of time. I don't know, Mr. Oluyemi, Dr. Oluyemi, are you there? Please, how many minutes do you have, or have I exceeded my time, please? Hello? Hello, please, Dr. Oluyemi, are you there?
Yes, please
Is
go
anybody
ahead.
actually hearing me?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Please go ahead. We can hear you. Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So that is for the succession planning metrics. So employee engagement, which I think most of us we do in our various organizations, right? How do we even track employee engagement? Yes, all those engagement that we do, how do we track it if actually is actually adding value? The first thing is the employee engagement score. So after the engagement or whatever intervention we do, right? Most times we run a survey. Some organizations run it quarterly, some mid-year, some annually, right? People fill the survey. And for each of those surveys, there are some elements of that engagement survey that we look into, right? Probably we are looking at the manager effectiveness. We actually draft some questions around manager effectiveness. We draft questions around feedback. We draft questions around team bonding, and a lot of elements that actually goes up into employee engagement survey, right? So when people feel it, how do we even measure it? So most times there are some tools that we can use to measure it. But however, there is a technical way we can do that, either using Excel or Power BI or any of the tools that we find very easy and useful. So for each of those questions, right, or each of those elements, that key factors, you must be able to know this. So aside for you knowing the overall engagement score, right? Oh, our overall employee engagement score is actually 70%. Oh, we are good and everything. You must be able to cascade down to each of those elements. What is even the engagement score of each of those elements? In terms of manager effectiveness, right? How engaged are people doing? What is our engagement scores in terms of management effectiveness, right? In terms of giving feedback, right? What is our engagement scores? In terms of maybe you are competing enough in terms of salary and everything. If you have a question around that, what is the engagement score? So you must be able to cascade each engagement score in each of these elements of your survey. That's number one. The other one is that you must be able to even cascade the engagement score per department. So you must be able to know that, oh, in finance department, this is their engagement score. In HR department, this is the engagement score. In sales, this is their engagement score, especially for those roles or those departments that is very, very critical to the business, like sales. Because those are people that is actually bringing revenue. So what is even the engagement score? Because the fact that you have 70% engagement should not blur your eyes to know that you are doing well. However, you must be able to trickle it down that, oh, what is even the engagement score of each of these departments? Because if you have 70% or 60%, don't be surprised. Your engagement score in sales might be low. That's why you see that some people say their engagement score is 70%, and still people are still disengaged because they only look at the overall. They don't actually cascade down to departments to know, okay, this is the engagement score we have for this department. This is where, so that you can know where you need to put some attention into. That is what employee engagement score actually does. Then the next one is employee net promoter scores. This is very, very simple because for any engagement survey or engagement you are rolling out, there is always these first questions. There is always there, which is on a scale of 1 to 10. Kindly rate the likelihood of you recommending your colleagues to so company. The question has always been there. Most times in any employee engagement survey, it has always been the first questions, right? And the scale is between 1 to 10. Now, this scale you are looking at now, it's a separate metrics different from the employee engagement survey because it only has just that one question. That is the only one question you are asking for you to get your employee net promoter score. What employee net promoter score is that it actually speaks to the loyalty and how your employee actually advocate for your company. Because people inside your company now, this is when they feel good, that is where they can start recommending people to you. And the effect of this is that it has effect in your retention, it has effect on your turnover, it has effect in your, even to the extent of your recruitment. Because if I'm not feeling good inside your organization, right, and you as a HR manager come to me that, please, we need so person, can you actually recommend? I might not be able to recommend because me that you are speaking to, I'm also planning my exit. And I will not want to bring my friends and colleagues and my associate to where I'm currently exiting, that I'm not even happy with. That is why this employee net promoter score is very, very critical. So you must be able to know where you stand when it comes to net promoter score. And this metrics is cascaded into three factors. The first one is promoters. The second one is we have promoters, then we have passive, and the last one we have it as detractors. So who are the promoters? Promoters are the people that actually, from that question, when they rate between, they are people that rate between 9 and 10. They are the promoters. Why? Who are the passive? The passive are the people that actually, they are neutral. They are neither here, they are neither there. Today, they are engaged. Tomorrow, they are disengaged, right? Those are the passive, or we call them neutrals. These are people between 8 to 7. Then who are the detractors? Detractors are between people between 0 to 6. So any of the employee that rates between 0 to 6, they are detractors. These kind of people, they are planning to leave your organizations. In fact, these are people that are currently using your data to send CV. Their right leg is outside. They only put their left leg inside. And they are the one that are waiting for any available offer. They are the one that you see them going somewhere to go and do interview and all that, like, because they are detractors. They are already disengaged and they can leave at any time. right? You must be able to know the percentage of people that are in your detractors for you to know that, in fact, maybe you are sitting on a time bomb. You must be able to know people that are in the percentage of people that are in your neutral. And you must be able to know that people that are your promoters. So how do you now quantify these employee net promoters? The measurement is your percentage promoters minus percentage detractors give you your employee net promoter score. So if when you do it, 60% are promoters, 20% are detractors. So it now be 60% minus 20%, which is 40%. That means that your employee net promoter score is 40%. So if your employee net promoter score is less than 20%, or on the negative side, or on the negative side, that means that you need to look into your engagements in your organizations. There is this general standard that it must be 20% and upward. But if it's coming down to negative, in fact, what it then means that you have more detractors than your promoters. That is what it then means. All right. The next one is your participation rate in employee engagement survey. So when you roll out an engagement survey, right? If you have 100 employees in your organization, you roll out an engagement survey. How many people actually fill that survey? Right? Then that speaks to the trust the employee have as an employee to you as an HR. So if you roll out an employee survey out of 100 employees and you are seeing only 30, what the signal that one is sending to you is that they don't trust you and they are not even willing to share feedback to you because they know that at the end of the day you will not do anything. So that speaks to you that lets you know that the level of trust in the organizations when it comes to feedback gathering. But what people will be saying is that the one we have been feeling, have didn't do anything. That is why it's always advisable that when you roll out a survey, have it at the back of your mind that you are ready to do at least 1 or 2 from the feedback. So don't roll out a survey for rolling out sake and you don't do anything. Over time, people will not take your survey serious again and they will not even feel it. So if you roll out a survey and the level of respondent response is less than 70%, that kind of survey result is not good or right for you to make decisions. So if you have 100 employees and only like 50 people actually fill the survey, you cannot use that 50 to actually decide their engagement level, right? It's not adequate enough. So you must be able to have at least 70% of response. With 70% response, it's a good audience. You have a very good audience feedback. It's very good for you to actually make this. You can make decision out of it. But it's less, it is 50 and less. You can't make decision with that because the survey, the people that you captured, right? The audience that you capture is very, very small to the total number of employees that you're supposed to capture in terms of survey response. And the last one is your manager effectiveness score. I've actually talked about this because this actually speaks to, by the time you break down all those employee survey questions, you have for management effectiveness. So you are looking at the scores. So it's telling you what is their engagement as far as the management is concerned. How people are engaged with management, the way management does, how are people engaged. The scores speaks to that. And the last I have here is the HR financial metrics. So these are metrics that will bring us into the table. When finance are speaking their own, you as an HR, you must be able to speak your own from the point of HR, right? The first one is staff cost to income ratio. So you are looking at all your percentage of your total staff costs, then compared to total organization values, income. So if in a month, the revenue that come into the organization is 30 million, and the staff cost you incur in that month is 5 million. So your staff cost to income ratio is 5 million divided by the 30 million times 100. The percentage of that is your staff cost to income ratio. What it means that from the revenue the company generated in that month, people resources only got that percentage from the revenue. And there's organizations that they have a benchmark for that. And it's also part of things that they use to measure the success of an HR, right? If the organization says that your monthly staff cost to income ratio should be like 30% of our revenue, right? That means that by the time you measure it, if you are doing more than 30%, definitely you need to look inward in terms of your staff cost. But if you are doing below 30% that has been benchmarked for you, that means that you are having you are actually having impact on the financial impact of the business, right? Because what they have allocated for you is 30%. But at the end of the day, you are spending 28%. So that means that you have saved 2% into the organization. So when the argument of HR is a cost center comes in, you have the data to back it up that you are not actually a cost center. You are actually what? Contributing to the bottom line. This is what was budgeted for me as my staff cost to income ratio as 30%. This is what I actually spend 28%. So in 2% has actually been saved for the business. Then the other one is overtime cost ratios. So for your payrolling, you are looking at your overtime pay divided by total payroll. If your total payroll is 30 million, and after this 30 million, the overtime is 10 million. So that means that you are doing 10 million divided by 30 million times 100. So that percentage, that would be like 30%, right? That 30% is your overtime, which might be much. What the gap that speaks to is that maybe you don't have the right number of employees at the right place, which actually costs your overtime in your business. So you must be able to look to quantify that for you to know how much you're actually spending on overtime, right? Then absenteeism cost. How do you quantify absenteeism cost? So you are looking at average daily wage that times the number of absent days. So if an employee was absent, right? And somebody replaced him or her, that's an overtime. What is that cost? The cost that you incur as an overtime for the person that replaced it speaks to your absenteeism cost. By the time you sum all these things together, that's the cost of absenteeism. Then the next one is a ROI on human capital. This is a very, very important metrics that is actually very strategic. So how do you do this? So you are looking at the return generated from any investment you do as an HR, be it training, be it benefits, be it HMO, compensation, everything. What is even the return on investment? For what is the return on investment that every employee that comes into the organization, what is the ROI for them coming and going back to their house? Every employee working in an organization, what is their ROI? How do you quantify that, right? Because this one actually demonstrates the investment your people is contributing to the profitability of the business. So what you need to do is that you are collecting the revenue from the finance. You are collecting data for revenue. You are collecting data from the operating expenses, right? So you minus the operating expense. When I'm by operating expenses, you are excluding the staff costs. So if the business revenue is 10 million and the operation expenses is 5 million, right? That's 10 million minus 5 million, right? So you have 5 million now, right? You are now dividing it by your total staff cost. And if your total staff cost is 2 million, that means that 5 million divided by 2 million, whatever it gives you shows that for any 1 naira that is being spent on a particular employee, this is a return on investment. I think I have a case study on that after this slide. So that will be more explanatory. And the last one here is the income per capita. Very, very strategic also. So this actually speaks to the revenue generated per employee. So you are looking at the total revenue and you are dividing it by your total head count. Whatever you have there is what? Your income per capita ratios. If it is a productions, right? So you are looking at how many production was done divided by the employees. It's giving you the productivity, right? Your employee productivity. If it's people in sales, right? You're looking at how many sales do you bring in and how many divided by the total number of employees, total number of sales employees. That will give you their income per capita ratios. And the last one here is the HR variance cost analysis. So you are looking at the difference between your budgeted HR costs and your actual HR costs. If what has been budgeted for you for your annual payroll is 100 million, and at the end of the day, you went ahead to go and spend 80 million, that means that you have saved the business 20 million. So you look at the percentage of that, that will give you your actual spending versus budget spending. Then you have the percentage of what you have saved. And if you are spending beyond your budget, that will also give you a signal that you have actually spent beyond the budget. So let's say, for instance, let's just take these two case study example before we round up. This how you can quantify human capital return on investment. And this is according to ISO 3414 standard, right? So they say if a company generates 10 million in revenue, has 7 million in operating expenses, excluding staff cost, and 2 million in staff costs. So your ROI will now be the 10 million at revenue minus the 7 million, which is going to give you 3 million. And you have a staff cost of 2 million. So that means that the 3 million divided by the 2 million, then you have $1.5. So what this means is that for every $1 you spend on your employee, the company has been able to generate $1.50 in returns. That is how human capital return on investment is being calculated. All you just have to just gather the data from the finance and you do the mathematics and you have your ROI. And the last one here is how do you even quantify recruitment, your turnover cost? So we have a mid-sized software company with 500 employees. Notice the rising turnover rates, especially among their software engineers. The annual voluntary turnover reached like 18%, above the industry average of 20%. Leadership wanted to quantify the financial impact. So what is the financial impact of the exit or the turnover? So the components you are looking, just as I explained before, you are looking at the recruitment cost. For the recruitment cost, you are looking at the cost of advertising, you are looking at the recruitment fee, you are looking at the interview, right? So you put all these costs together, right? Whatever it gives you, in this example now, it costs $6,000, right? You are looking at the onboarding and training costs during the onboarding, right? All those things, all those costs you incur during onboarding time, maybe you give back to the employees, the new employees, you give Jota, Biro, all the costs that you incur, depending on how you are doing your onboarding. You look at that, right? The technical training and everything. Then you look at the lost productivity, just like I said. For this, when this new role was left vacant, the person that is doing overtime on it, what is the overtime cost? That's all you are looking at, right? You look at that. Then, how do you calculate it? The first thing you calculate what is even your turnover rate? How many people actually exited? You said 80% of the employees, right? Which means that there are like 90 employees in this example now, right? Then what is their cost per exit? So that means that you're adding cost of the recruitment, the cost of production of the onboarding and training, the cost of the lost productivity. You're adding everything together. By the time you add everything together, it gives you like 25,000 euro, right? Then the summation of those costs per hiring, you are now you are now multiplying it by the total number of people that have employees. The summation of everything give you your turnover cost. Then with that, you can be able to present that this is how much we have actually, this is the cost we incurred as far as turnover is concerned. With that, whatever intervention you want to bring on board, you actually consider, because they will see that they are actually losing money. This is how we don't know that we are losing money in terms of turnover, because we don't quantify it. By the time you quantify, you see how much we are losing. And in conclusion, so why you should adopt metrics for business decisions? It makes you transform your people management from administrative function into a strategic driver of business success. You'll be seen as a data-driven HR rather than an opinion or gut feeling-driven HR or a traditional or administrative HR. You'll be able to link your workforce initiative to financial outcomes. You'll be able to see that all those metrics actually links to financial outcomes. And these are things that your leaders want to hear, right? Because these are things that is making the finance people in operations actually have that recognitions in the organizations. So you as an HR, you should be able to actually speak with data, right? You must be able to link your HR initiative to financial outcomes. You must be able to identify risk and opportunity early. That's due to the succession, because succession planning is like a risk contingency, right? So it makes your organization to have a rest in mind that for anything that happens, or anybody that exited, no matter what the person is, so in fact, we have people that are ready to take that role. You be able to justify your investment in terms of talent development, technology, and all that. And it makes you to strengthen your HR role as a strategic partner to the business, not a cost center, not a supporting partner, as a strategic partner. So you move from a supporting partner to a strategic partner. And lastly, conclusively, it makes you to provide clarity, accountability, and business alignment to make informed decisions and boost your employee experience and organizational performance. Thank you very much. It's the end for the class. Any questions,
to know where
contributions, or additions?
for changes. The trick.
Thank you. I don't know, is anybody there?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can't really hear anybody. I don't know, maybe it's my network.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. All right. So do you have any question, any contribution before we end the class? All right.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It is actually very well detailed. So my question is, when you were saying something, I think around the HR financial metrics, if, for example, the company have allocated like a 30% of the revenue to go to people costs, and unfortunately, as a HR, you found out that at the end of the financial year, you exceeded such target. Let's say you exceeded it by, instead of having a 30% or below, you're having like a close to 40%. What strategies do you advise for the HR to implement in order to curtail that or stop that from repeating in another financial year? If you are talking, you're actually muted anyway. I can't hear you.
So what I'm saying is that, thank you for that question, right? So what I'm saying is that in that sense now, 30% was budgeted for you as your annual staff cost, right? But you went ahead to go and spend 40%, right? Now, before the end of the year, it is advisable that you are supposed to be tracking this month on month, right? For you to know where you currently are as far as your staff cost is concerned, right? Now, at the time you now notice that, oh, okay, with the look of things, you can now predict that, oh, it seems I'll be spending more than the 30% that has been allocated, right? That is where your data will now comes in, because the extra percent that you wanted to spend on or intervention you want to do that will cost more, right? This is where you now bring data to drive it, right? Okay, so far so good, we spent 30%. And this is the impact of the 30% we have spent in terms of ROI. That's why I said that it's always very important that for any intervention you are doing, you should be able to measure the ROI. The business will not have any issue in actually they're increasing you or align with you that you spend 40%. Where they will have issue is that if you cannot show the return on investment of that extra 10%, that is where the problem is going to come. Because for every extra 10% you spend, right, you must be able to actually tell them that this is the return on investment. If the extra 10% goes into training, or if it goes into what's it called, any engagement interventions, right, you must be able to back that up with data in terms of return on investment. Maybe as a result of, okay, so far so good, due to this extra 10% we actually spend, we're actually spending on training, and this is the return on investment of such trainings. So you must be able to have data that will back up the extra 10% in terms of ROI. But if you don't have any data and you went ahead to go and spend extra 10%, then what that means is that you as an HR, you cannot even put control in terms of your cost. So definitely, it now shows that you're a cost center places, that you just spend anyhow without putting the control. But however, just like I said, if you are tracking this month on month, you know your month, you know the percentage you have month on month. Next month, another, you are tracking it, right? By that time, you are going to put some control measures in place. And it's also going to guide you on your spendings. It is when you are not tracking this, that is why you might exceed that 30% that was given you without you be able to actually show an ROI to it. I don't know, maybe that actually answered the questions, right?
Yes,
The
thank
bottom
you
line is
very
that there
much.
is a data to justify the extra 10% you spend. There is a value that is being added to the company as far as this 10%, extra 10% is concerned. And you must be able to quantify that value with data in terms of ROI. All right.
Thank you.
Sorry, do you hear me, please?
Yes, he said thank you. Prof, over to you, sir, for your questions, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Mr. Yinka Oyedele, good evening. How are you?
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah. I just want to make a contribution. I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, of course. Yes, please
Yeah.
go.
Now, some of these metrics, I think if Dr. Adeosun can, let us have a time where we use predictive models to be able to see the impact of these metrics on so many things. You see, when we talk about these metrics, the best way we can interpret them is when they see the impact on decision making. I don't know if you get my point. And see
Exactly.
where we have, a kind of time series analysis. We can have them measured against a linear regression, a moving average, a multilinear regression, where we can also look at the correlation analysis of these metrics to various factors, and also be able to build a model that an HR, professionals can just do plug and play. So I think there should be a session like that. Beautiful presentation, but let it be well interpreted from data interaction so that at each point you can see correlation. We just build a model and we discover that in that model, increase in salary and staff retention rates are against one another. So the fact that you increase salary does not mean staff will stay. In fact, it means if you increase salary, they are likely to go. And in the real sense, that is what was happening. So I think the icing on the cake is to look at, a very practical approach where we can use all this correlation analysis and bring all this auto regression analysis and look at all these multiple effects and do a very strict prescriptive analytics. And if possible, we can do a little demonstration of Python, and see how this can even help you and make it seamless. I just want to make that comment. I think I'll speak with Dr. Adeosun if we can have time, to have live data and we'll see the way it works. So it will just be a model that we can share ahead of 2026. Thank you very much. Dr. Adeosun, thank you.
Yeah, that is actually true, because all these metrics, there is a technical know-how behind it, right? It's not about the theoretical aspect. That's why normally if I'm teaching people analytics, I'm more of the practical side, right? So you must be able to at least know how to calculate all this. Just like what he said, you must be able to do regressions, predict either with Python, even as low as Excel is, you can predict with Excel using regressions. If you don't know, not necessarily you should know Python. And my advice is that people that want to drive their intervention or their HR process with data, what they just need to start with is Excel. Not necessarily they should go and know how to know Python or how, right? Excel is a very good start for anybody that is interested in driving their intervention with data. If you know Excel, it's a very good start for this. Thank you very much for that contributions. Right.
Thank you so much, Prof, for your recommendations.
I don't know if
We'll
there's any
find a
other
way.
question before we call it a
Thank
day.
you so
Let me
much,
just check the
our
chat.
able facilitator. I love your energy, but tomorrow is another day. Okay? and there's a correlation between resting and another day. So we want you to go and rest. You have done well.
Okay, sorry, somebody asked. Please, my question is, how does a HR properly compute some of these metrics in OMB? Sorry, I don't know the meaning of OMB. OMB, where the profitability of the company is not public knowledge, or where there are no clear cost salary grade or bands. I'm trying to get this question. This metrics alone.
One-man
Sorry,
business.
can the person just explain?
One-man business. And this is the final question we are taking, sir. One-man business.
That's Judith Oputa, right? Okay, one-man business. Okay. Some of these metrics in one-man business, where the probability of the... Oh, okay. All right. So in that kind of organization whereby you as an HR, they don't give you data, they don't expose you to their data, their financial data. What my advice is, see, the whole thing is that you cannot do all this thing at once, right?
Okay.
You have to start with the one that you have capability to do, the low-hanging fruit, right? If you don't have access to financial data, fine, right? Because it's just a level of trust, right? You have to build the trust over time. So you cannot be reporting, cannot be tracking all these metrics, right? No, it's not possible at once. There's an organization that they will not even give you access to that kind of data, right? You will not even have it, right? So you can start with the one that you have capacity to handle. So let's say, for instance, now the recruitment data is still within your purview, right?
Yeah.
So you are the one that recruits. So you know your time to hire, you know your time to fill, right? So you can start with those ones, right? Coming down to your L&D, you are the one that does L&D, right? So if you cannot go to the last stage of the result, if you are still maintaining between learning and between reactions and learning, if that is what you have the capacity to do, right? You still maintain that, because it is when they now trust your data over time, then they will be the one to say, okay, can we have access? Can we give you access to this data? Then with that, you can start reporting on those ones. But you need to start with the low-hanging fruit, those ones that you have control over, which are recruitment. You have control over your recruitment. You know what all the metrics around your recruitment. You know that. You know around your L&D. In fact, to the extent of your compensation, you are not that do start payroll. You should be able to at least get some metrics as regards your compensation and benefit. So my advice is start with the one that you have control over before you move down to the one that is more strategic and that will require more data from finance or from anywhere your profitability data is. I don't know if I actually answered that question, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, our amiable facilitator. God bless you. Good night, everybody. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
You're welcome.